Good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me here this evening. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I am so happy to now be able to bring you Crime Crunchies. Guess what? I have a fan favorite. It is Boomer. Yay, Boomer. Woohoo. Hi, Boomer. Maybe you have to hit live. Can you hear me?
I do. Yeah, I'm waiting.
Okay.
Hold on.
Just so you guys know, we're experimenting with something tonight. Uh-oh. So just so you guys know, give us just a second with technical difficulties because Boomer and I both use StreamYard, and we're trying to simulcast right now so that he can simulcast on his channel, and I'm simulcasting on my channel. Good evening, everybody. Hi, Lisa. I would like everyone to say hello to Lisa, our wonderful, beautiful moderator, Crime After Dark HQ. Please make sure you check out her channel, give her a sub. And also in the description, here comes Boomer. In the description is to buy Lisa a coffee. Get her a coffee. Hey, Boomer.
Hey, am I coming through now?
Yeah, I see you. I'm just wondering if you have to, I wonder why it's not going live on your channel.
I
Did you
think it is.
select your desk? Okay. Oh, yes, you are live.
Yeah.
Oh, goody. Oh, gosh. Yay, we're doing it.
Yeah. Okay. We can still learn something, right?
We are learning something. So thank you for your patience, everybody. We are simulcasting right now. Boomer is live on his channel, and I'm on my channel. Isn't that cool?
There we
Yay.
go.
All right. Well, everybody here should know Boomer. Boomer Investigates is a retired homicide detective. Boomer, do you want to give just a quick intro of yourself, and then we'll get going?
Sure. I was with the St. Petersburg Police Department in Florida for 30 years, and I spent 23 years in investigations. I was in patrol on two different short stints for up to 7 years, and then I did burglary for 5 years, and I did homicide for 10 years. The last 10 years of my career was in homicide and other major crimes like sex crimes and all that stuff. I ran the major crime unit too.
So you've seen it all.
Well, I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot. I've been in a lot of crime scenes, a lot of murder crime scenes. When people take their lives, crime scenes.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff.
Well,
some of those are some of the worst.
I can only imagine. I have heard that I heard today a statistic of 70% of law enforcement has some form of PTSD, and the other 30% are rookies.
I totally agree. Now, I didn't believe that when I was actually active, but since I retired, it probably is more true than when I was actually working. When you're in the mix, you don't see it or feel it. But when you retire, then on top of that, everybody has these retirement problems. I don't care what field you're in. Usually you have a retirement because when you're there, you're somebody.
Yeah.
Then when you retire, all of a sudden you're a nobody, and you got to have something to keep yourself busy. You can't just sit around. So I didn't sit around, but it was an adjustment. And I have realized over the years that probably you got some PTSD.
Yeah. Are you?
My wife will probably tell you that too.
I'm sure. So are you hyper vigilant when you go places?
Oh yes, my head's on a swivel, and it's like I went to get new glasses one time, and they wanted me to get those progressives,
Yep.
And so I got a pair of those progressives, but it's like you're looking down tunnels like this here, and they told me you just got to follow your nose like that, I said, I won't follow my nose. won't use my peripheral vision. I can't see with those things. Anyway, I gave them back. So now I got bifocals,
So what are you looking when even now, if you're hyper vigilant, you're scanning, what are you looking for in those
I'm
moments?
looking for somebody out of place that's coming near me or anything like that. When I go to a gas station or something like that, and women need to really be hyper vigilant like that. Somebody come up, but they can get me too. So I'm hyper vigilant on things like that, or walking through the Walmart parking lot, or if I go to a restaurant, we're famous for always wanting to sit where we're facing the door. So my wife always makes sure I'm sitting where I'm facing the door so I can see people coming in. And I'm always ready for action, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference, I guess.
Well, so my grandson is special needs, and he's 10, and he's tall, but he's nonverbal. And so we like to travel and do road trips. So when we stop at like a Love's or a travel stop or whatever, he's with me. But I found that I'm making eye contact with everybody. Like,
Yeah.
you're not getting one over on me, mister. And so are people looking for people who are complacent?
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you're not paying attention, you're a target. For somebody to come up and grab your bag, or hijack your car. All kinds of things can happen. Now it don't happen all that often, but it does happen. So all you got to do is, just when you stop, you look around, make who's close to you. Is there somebody trying to sneak up on you? Lots of times I'm looking behind, that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's just being a cop. That's how you stayed alive.
Well, and if you're making eye contact, they're less likely to target you. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think that's good for everybody to know because, especially with Nancy and, I think that we are just so used to being polite, and somebody comes to the door and we feel like we have to open the door. And, there's also a statistic that I've shared. I know we're kind of diverting. We're going to get it to Nancy
Yeah.
here shortly. But
Right.
there's I'd heard, and I know you know this, but if somebody gets in the car and you're lucky enough to be a driver, just drive that thing in the wall, or if they have a gun, you have more chance living as long as they don't take you to a second location where they have control.
You got it. Yep. Yep.
And
When you
it's
lose
your
control,
life.
you let them have the car.
You let them have the car?
No, I said, if you
Yep.
let them have the car, you're in trouble.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
why I think in the case of Nancy, I think she put up a good fight, and she might have put up a good fight. I'll call it a last stand at the front door when she knew she was being taken out. So, I don't know. I'm just guessing, of course, on that, but based on the blood stuff on the front porch, it
I
was
agree.
more than it was. I think she got hit in the face or something, hit in the nose, and went to the ground, and she put up a fight, I think, so that's
Like,
pretty good for somebody that's not very active, can't move around, but she was putting up a fight. Good for her. I don't think going with them would have been the answer.
well, and that just shows also when your adrenaline gets going, you have superpower,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so what we're going to do tonight, the exercise tonight, again, is I appreciate Boomer coming on because he is a wealth of knowledge. And, before I even met you, Boomer, I was hoping and praying somebody with law enforcement would befriend the Crime Crunchies, because this is the stuff that, like, if I could rediscover myself, that's what I would have totally gone into something along those lines. But let's go back to the crime scene. And I'm not going to, if you don't know, that's fine. I'm not putting you on the spot. But going back to that first week, what kind of investigation do you perceive that they did? And we're not going to put down any law enforcement. I'm sure they've done a fine job, but let's talk about what you think they did. And then later on, let's get into what you would do if you could go back in now and start over. So let's deal with what you think happened those first few days in your
Well,
experience.
starting from the very beginning, when you're a patrol officer and you run up on something like this, and they have a lot, if you track their X account, they have a lot of missing people in that area that go missing, and a lot of older people. So I suspect the officers rolled in there thinking this is just another one of those missing people, and we're going to find them wandering around. So that creates a little bit of complacency maybe, but at the same time, that's what they're rolling into. a person that's missing, don't know where she's at. So they start checking. They have to. So they got to move around the scene, move around to the front. And then, from radio traffic, we've gotten from, what's her name? That there were officers on the front that saw the blood and told other people to protect the blood. Okay, well, you might say, well, then they knew there was a big crime scene. Well, not necessarily. You got to take a little more time, and you need to talk to the reporters. Who were the reporting people? Was Annie and Tommaso. You got to find out something from them. So there's a point of time that goes by that you can't do much about. And then on top of that, because it's a missing person, the first officers on the scene probably aren't thinking about blocking off the crime scene, taping off the crime scene, or telling, stopping traffic from coming up on the driveway and all that. So I understand that, because I've been to a lot of crime scenes where you don't know what's going on. And it takes a bit to get your handle on what's going on. And then when you figure out, well, this might be a crime scene, now is when you have to start thinking about, what am I going to do now? So I think the way it was handled in the beginning is probably normal and natural until they figured out. Now, I don't know what they were being told by Annie and Tommaso. That there's conflicting stories on that. I don't know. Some say that they told them right away that she's not missing because she can't go anywhere. She couldn't wander off. So even though that they said that, how do you know? An 84-year-old woman could have been having a bad dream. A lot of things going to happen. She could have stumbled out the door. She could have stumbled around in the yard. So you got to check that yard. Now, here's the other thing. That whole area is so dark at nighttime. But they were getting there in the daytime, but at nighttime. So, but if you imagine, she couldn't have went very far without stumbling into a cactus and falling down. So but they had to check the crime scene in the immediate area around other yard, other whatever, to establish, okay, she is not here. She's not here. Then, of course, they had to call the hospitals and things to see if she had been reported in. I'm sure the police were doing that, probably through dispatch, calling from dispatch, stuff like that. So, the amount of time that it took for them to establish, okay, we got something serious here, let's say, an hour or so. And you got to call your supervisor and before they get the big ball rolling. So they said they had the homicide guys were there, if I'm remembering right, by about 2:00. The call came in at 12 something for the police, 12:03 or whatever. So you figure, all right, it's by 1:00 they had established there's something wrong. This is not a walk off. So then they called in the detectives. The detectives now they call them in. This is on a Sunday. They call them in. They're from home. That might take them an hour to get there. So that 2:00 arrival time for the detectives, the homicide guys, is what I would call normal and natural. So that's what I think probably went on in the beginning, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. And that's the thing, because I felt like it wasn't until the next day. I felt that it was Annie and Tomas, and I know we don't know for sure. We haven't heard the 911, but I felt like it wasn't really until the next day that they were really moving it into a crime scene. But do you think that happened because with the blood? Do you think that
I don't know when they put the crime scene tape? You know what I mean? But if I'm a homicide detective arriving there, okay, I'm a homicide detective arriving there. These guys are the other officers are telling me everything they've done and what they've checked on, and she's not in any hospital or anywhere. Annie and Tommaso are there, and so they're questioning them. They're questioning the officers. Say, we've searched all around all these properties. We've checked with a few neighbors or something like that. I'm assuming they did that.
Sure.
Okay, and she's gone. And then, the reports we've got is that Annie and Tommaso, or Annie at least, told the police she's gone. I don't know if they said kidnapped or whatever, but
Sure.
they were, the way I understand, they were insisting on she's gone. She hasn't wandered off. So from that point on, if I was a homicide detective, I'm looking at the crime scene. You got the blood on the front porch. You got the back doors are propped open, apparently, according to Savannah. Police haven't told us that, but it indicates something was amiss. Obviously, back doors propped open, the front door, the blood on the porch, and then on top of that, if you follow that blood out, now I originally thought it went probably straight out to the end of the sidewalk, and they
Yeah.
put her in a car.
Yeah.
But Chris McDonough from the interview room, he did a whole thing on that and trailed the blood. So where the blood, after they come out of the front porch, down the sidewalk just a little bit, it turned right, and there was a trail of blood across the rocky yard there. And then you notice from the satellite, I'm not satellite, but the drone view of the streamers are out there doing drones. When the FBI and the police or whoever showed up, they focused in that area a lot, off to the right of the sidewalk. So I think she was taken out that way. So I think the original officers, including probably the homicide, I don't know if the original officers or not, but I think the homicide guys probably followed that trail of blood. It wasn't a lot. You don't need it, but
Yeah, it wasn't
it
very
continued.
much.
Yeah, it continued on. You had to be paying attention. You'd never be able to
Mhm.
see it at nighttime. But, and so, and if she wasn't down there in the bushes somewhere, she was gone. There's only one explanation left. And then, we just have heard rumors about Annie and Tommaso saying, she was kidnapped. And then, of course, we've heard the story about the conversation between Savannah and Cam saying, she's kidnapped, So that's all. That's also a question for me. It's always been a question for me. What made Cam think that?
That's it. Why? It
What
sounds
made
like
him think that? Have they received some kind of threats
Mhm.
in the past, something like that? Or did he just, add up? Yeah, well, yeah, she's kidnapped because they're trying to get money from you, Savannah. You're the one with the money. I don't know. But, or had they received threats, or did they know some other kind of information? But anyway, that's a side note. But at the crime scene, now if I'm the homicide guy, I'm saying, hey, tape off this place, tape it off. And, they should have taped it off in a much wider area than they did. They taped it off out to the street. Well, you had all this traffic from sheriff's deputies and everybody else driving on the street where there's a good potential in that type of gravel that they had there to leave tracks.
Yuppers.
So they needed to tape off that whole road, close it down, and then do a really wide taping off of the place. And then that's your outer crime scene. But now you have an inner crime scene too, that which is the house. And you may or may not tape off any more around the house or in the house or in the inside of the yard, but you certainly want to mark off everywhere where you think there's like the blood trail and all that kind of stuff, and you want to preserve that front porch area extensively. You don't want anybody walking up there till you have your crime scene technicians up there doing all that they're supposed to do, which is take the mat, and stuff like that.
Well, and going back to Chris McDonough, he had mentioned that he felt it was, I don't know what he thought it was, but the odd that that Annie and Tommaso would say that they called the hospitals. He felt that all they needed to do was call dispatch and see if 911 had been called. Do you think that, I mean, what's procedure in that situation? Would you have called the hospitals?
Yeah, I would have called the hospitals.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would have called the hospitals. But I understand what he's saying. If she was having a medical problem, I mean, I know about that because 2010, I had a heart attack and my wife wasn't at home. She
Oh,
was out for a walk.
oh,
Oh my
wow.
goodness. So I called 911, and
Wow.
send somebody out. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I called 911 on myself because there wasn't anybody else. Who's
Yeah.
so that's what you do. So
So,
I see
yeah.
his point, but you can't hold it exactly to that.
So, do you think that I mean, it seems to me my perception is that Annie and Tommaso were in the house and there was just chaos. Chaos going. They'll
Yes.
probably be asking a million. Is that normal? Or
No,
would they have been asked to
no,
leave?
no. They should have been moved outside.
Okay.
Now, at least by the time the patrol officers, I call them patrol deputies, they should have moved them outside themselves. They had a crime scene inside. You have an inside crime scene. So you have an outside crime scene. Now, they should have moved them outside of that, at least like on the back porch or something, wherever and continue their questioning up to a point, and then you move them off of the property into a car.
Separate?
Yeah, and then you take them to the police station and talk to them. That's the way it's normally done. And it wasn't normally done this way, as far as I know. In this case here, they were treated differently. If it was from me and you,
Mhm.
that's what would have happened. They would have separated us and, would have nicely asked us to come to the police station and talk to us. And if we want to know what's going on, we're going to cooperate. Because one of the things they're not trying to, at that point, they're not, people think this, they're not necessarily trying to pin it on Annie and
Sure.
Tommaso.
No, of
They're
course
trying
not.
to find out about their mother, victimology on their mother. So it's a process you go through. And then while you're interviewing them, if things don't go right, then you can move to them a little bit. But, that's the process that would normally happen. You would take them from that scene and you would move them. I would have, if I was a patrol officer, I would have immediately moved them from out of the inside of the house. Once they showed me, Mama lives in here, she's in here, and and there's a cursory little look, but of course we know they've already been in that house a whole long time
Mhm.
before the police got there. But the deputies that got there, they should have moved them out. That's the normal course of things. And then it's a segment. Okay, now we move you here, we talk to you here, and then we move you here. The homicide detectives show up, they start talking to you, and we move them on from there. But they didn't need to stay inside that crime scene. Nobody else needed to be inside that crime scene. You don't need a whole bunch of deputies walking around inside that crime scene either. And I guarantee you that crime scene was chaos inside the crime scene. When I say guarantee, I just believe from all that I've heard, there was too many people there. And then even later, when you see all the video of all the people that were around the crime scene,
Mhm.
just too much. And because you need to clear it out until the people that are going to process it come in. I mean, it's very much like on TV. If you watch any of the British crime shows and all that, those guys go in with space suits on just about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then they have little squares, little
Mhm.
foot squares that are most of it underneath is hollow, but you place down these steps and you set up. This is the way I want everybody to come in. Anybody
Yep.
that's coming in, come in this way. Of course, they got the booties on and all that stuff. Well, there's a reason for all that, and if you
Mhm.
don't do all that, and you get a good defense attorney, they're going to make hay out of all that kind of stuff. This case will have a lot to make hay out of, believe me.
So
So
if you were working that day and you found out that the home you're going to is Nancy Guthrie and Annie and Tomas are there saying, you need to understand, this is Savannah Guthrie's mom. Is that going to make you treat them any differently? Do you think that that is what made people treat them differently and not separate?
yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we don't know that didn't come down from the sheriff too.
Yeah.
And it's either an attitude. Our attitude was, Hey, listen, one time I'll give you this little story. One time we had a murder case where it was a drive-by shooting thing, and it was a squabble between two groups. And we got the people that were in the car to the station, and one of them was a nephew of mine. So next thing I know, he's going to be interviewed and all this kind of stuff. So the next thing I know, my brother is showing up at the station with his second or third wife or something, and they're wanting me to do something about it. So I had to stand out there in the hallway and tell them, listen, he's just like anybody else in this situation. Well, I'm not going to treat him one bit different. I'm telling you. Well, his wife was not happy with me.
Yeah.
You know, she was not happy with me. Now, my brother understood, but I don't think his wife ever forgave me for that. Anyway, the kid really wasn't involved. And in the end, he didn't, he was riding in the car. He didn't know this stuff was going to happen. And he wasn't, he escaped pretty easy, but it had nothing to do with me. I told my guys, I said, listen, yes, he's my nephew, but you treat him just like everybody else. So if it was a celebrity, it would be the same thing. Hey, if it was Sheriff Nanos showing up, it would be the same thing. I mean, I used to tell, if the chief showed up at our crime scene, he's not coming in. You got no reason to come in. If you're coming in, you're going to log in on this log here that you came in the crime scene. That now makes you a witness, and you may have to go to court.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever did a crime scene log people in and out. I never saw that on any of the stuff. So
yeah.
How do you know who was in there and out of there? How do you know who to check for whose hair that was? For example, that could have been the sheriff's hair.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree.
Blonde though. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I completely get it. So, we've heard rumblings that Sheriff Nanos was looking at getting some sort of a reality deal. I mean, and of course, this is going to be all speculation, but I mean, it also really feels like he's been catering to her and the family. I mean, and I'm not asking you to answer that, but when Sheriff Nanos went to the podium and said, hold on, I've got some notes from the family, points from the family that I want to make sure I get it. I mean, is that a no-no?
That is not normal at all.
Yeah.
And why would you say that? I mean, you wouldn't say that if you wanted to make some points for the family, like saying, they're victims and, we want to be cognizant of that and all that kind of stuff. You say it yourself. You don't say, I got notes here from the family. I mean, who are you working for?
Yeah.
First off, you're working for the county of Pima County in the state of Arizona, and you're working for the victim, not for the family. I don't know. It was odd. That's all I know. It was very odd.
Well, that seems like a conflict of interest almost,
It
because
does.
I mean, and then the rest, and again, I'm not really asking you to answer this because obviously you're not there or not, but the next week when they're all huddled in Annie's house, the entire family's in there and they've got ICACs going in and downloading devices and whatnot, and everybody's hearing all the conversations. I mean, and Ashley Banfield is saying at that point, which of course things change, T is a prime suspect. He's the last person to have seen there. Is there nobody in that group, FBI included, that's saying, hey, this is probably not a good idea? I mean, how would that conversation go? Or I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they should have already been separated and questioned. That's the problem. See, what they're considering a question, and even the sheriff recently said, we talked to them. They were cooperative and all this kind of stuff. We talked to them is not an interview.
Correct.
You can talk to somebody outside. You can phase into an interview, and then you can phase into an interrogation. But that has to happen at different stages in different places. You're not going to be into, you're just trying to establish something about the victim, what happened here, and then of course the last person to see, statistically, of course, because it's true, last person to see is usually a prime suspect. You know, it's probably 80%. I forget the statistics people throw around, but it's, you know, I heard Dr. Gary talk about 90% or something, but
Correct.
you know, it's true. So it's only normal and only natural that the detectives should have zeroed in on him and should have interviewed him really hard, you know?
Well, and a proper interrogation is they're separated and they're in the room at the police station being recorded. Is that
Yes. Yes.
okay?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you take them down to the station. Now,
Yep,
they don't have to go. They
sure.
don't have to go, you know? That's why, you know, it's stages. You talk to them, you get some rapport going with them, and then you know, say, hey, we really need to, for your good, we need to talk to you and make sure that you're eliminated from this whole thing, you know, because people are going to say, whatever, however you want to approach it. Usually people don't question going down to the station. Hey, we need to take you down to the station and get your statement.
Yeah.
That's how you say it. Get your
My
statement.
mother's missing. I
Yeah.
want them to pay
Need a
attention.
statement from you.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you do. And I'm just telling you, I did a video on this way back, and I did a couple of shorts on it too. That the people weren't, they were not treated like everybody else. They were given the golden ride. They didn't have to
Well,
do it. They didn't have to do anything. As far, you know, I can't say that. I'm sorry.
sure.
I just from outside I don't see it. And because Sheriff Nano says they cooperated and they spoke to us or we talked to them, he didn't say, listen, we took them down, we interviewed them, we went through everything completely. Hey, and they even took a polygraph test. You know what I mean? You could even go to that extent with him. You probably ought to have done that. If he didn't want to do it, he didn't have to do it. But at least you know, maybe that's how you help eliminate him. Because here's why I say that's so important. For one thing, not eliminating him, is going to come back on you in the future if you make an arrest. The defense is going to make a big deal out of that. How did you eliminate him? How do we know he didn't do it? Da 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 da. In murder investigations, you know, you have to do a couple of things. One, I mean, a lot of things, but
Mhm.
you have to not only prove that the guy you got, the guilty guy you think did it, you have to prove these other people couldn't have done it and did not
Correct.
do it. So they're going to have to at some point in time prove that Tommaso could not have done it,
Mhm.
and you know,
That's
or could
true.
not have hired someone to do it, or something like that. There's so many things that need to be done in this investigation. I'm not sure they've probably been done. All of their financial records need to be pulled, and everything. Go through their whole life with a fine tooth comb. Same thing with Nancy. Every file she's got in her house, everything she's ever filed in her bank accounts, and anything she's got needs to be gone through with a fine tooth comb to find out, because what's the motive for doing this to her? I mean, some Tom, Dick, or Harry off the street didn't want to come in and just kill her for no reason or drag her out of that house. Somebody sent them in there. If it wasn't Tommaso, and I don't think it was, but you know, it was somebody that was hired by somebody.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be Tommaso or Annie. I know there's tons of people stuck on that. Another reason why you need to eliminate them is you need to get people to not focus so much on that, and let's focus on the real
I
problem.
agree.
You
I
know?
am with you. I wish somebody would come up with a better, like, you know, I've been on it because statistically, I'm not proven that it's not still there. Okay. I'm just, and I know you are more cautious, I guess, than I am, but
I
I
am.
mean, I can't. And so anyway, let's go over this question because this is very interesting. I mean, and I mean, you're speculating, but if the family is involved, will law enforcement cover for them because of Savannah Guthrie?
I wouldn't, and I don't think the deputies are involved on the sheriff's department
Mhm.
probably would. We've already seen one guy that apparently Chris McDonough has mentioned about he there was, I don't know if it was related. I don't even know that it was related to the Guthrie case. I don't think it was, but he was told to do a search warrant. And the deputy said, no, I'm not doing a search. I don't have probable cause. I'm not doing it. Well, they disciplined him and transferred him and whatever. I don't know what that's actually case is related to, but it could be that there's so much fear in the deputies
I'm sure.
that they'll do things that they wouldn't do otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not. I mean, if my chief of police, which, you know, we dealt with chiefs of police. So if my chief of police was telling me to do something that wasn't on the up and up, I won't tell you what I would have told him, but I wouldn't have went along with it, not for a second. And the chief of police that I worked for several of them. They knew that. They knew what I was about.
I'm not sure that Nanos is like that. I'm pretty sure Nanos is going to punish anybody who comes up and, you know, that's the feeling
I would
I
have
get.
been fired then if I was working for Nanos.
Oh, wow. Well, there you
I
go.
would have been fired.
Well, I like
tried
that
to
though.
tell me to do this, do that, and, you know, and whatever. I was, I'm not doing it. I'd be like that deputy who got disciplined, you know. So he's created fear in that department that's not necessary. That's not how you be a leader. That's not a leader. He's not a leader. So anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit trail.
I know, but I agree with you. And that's why I have you on the show, is because I agree with your ethics. I know you're an ethical person. I already know that. And I'm the same way. So, so you talked about how they would have to almost not only clear A and T or just T, they would have to prove that he couldn't have done it. And so what are the things that you're going to do? Because I've never thought about it from that angle. That's very interesting. What do they do to prove he couldn't have done it?
They already have things in which why I'm not as gun-ho about them as other people are. You know, more than 50% of the people believe that it's the family, you know. That's my unofficial poll. But they have their phones. They have their car telemetry. They have all that. So with the phone alone, you know, people don't understand this phone has everything you've ever done, said, or anything else goes through that phone. The phone's listening to you all the time. I don't care what they tell you.
Oh no, I'm in advertising. It does
all the time.
It's
and then everywhere you go, everything you search on your phone and all that kind of stuff, unless you're really, really skilled at knocking it off of there, you know, clearing it off of there, it's going to be on there for a long time. You know what I mean? They just had that in the Goldberg case where they did his phone stuff and all that. That's a whole nother subject, but they know where Tommaso was that night or where his phone was.
And that's what I want to point out. They know where his phone was. Yeah.
Right. Now they say, well, somebody could have picked him up. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody could have picked him up.
Yep.
All right. So at least they got the phone. They got Annie's phone, you know. You have patterns of where they were before, after, and did he meet somebody somewhere and all that kind of stuff. They have his phone records and people he's called. Now, if you're smart, you're not doing any of this off your regular phone.
Sure.
You know, you using a burner phone if you're contacting people to set something up and all that kind of stuff. But is he that smart? I don't know.
Well, you know, burner phones, Rex Human, I don't know if you followed that, but he got caught with burner phones.
Yeah, you can get caught with them.
You can get caught.
But the thing to do is you buy them and get rid of them.
Yeah.
You don't keep one. You know, if he would have gotten rid of a phone every time he did one of his things, he would have been better off. You know, so.
But then he'd also would have had to have texted somebody to come pick him up. I mean, there's communication with somebody with the burner phone.
Most probably, unless they had lined it up.
Yeah.
Days in advance. Now, I haven't actually checked this on a calendar, but I think the 11th of January 11th, and then the night that this happened, they were on weekends, right? Saturdays.
Yeah, they were.
All right. So if this is a person that probably could only set this up on a weekend. Why would you do it on just on Saturdays?
Well, let's see, we're not working our 9 to 5. We can maybe
Yeah,
travel a little bit,
exactly.
go
The
meet at the
person that
park.
the guy who was one of the FBI people call him a mope.
Yep.
Uh, but anyway, if that person may work,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Now they
Yeah,
may
you
not work in a 9 to 5 job. They could be working on construction and all
sure.
kinds of stuff, and they're off on the weekend. And that's what I think. Now
I
I
agree with
can't
you
make that
100%.
absolute thing. So we don't know that Tommaso could have set it all up ahead of time. He could have met with them, all kinds of things, and then but he didn't have. If he was gonna, like if Derek is involved, right?
Mhm.
They didn't have to. He didn't have to be involved himself. Somebody else, he sets it up. I've had contract killings before where other people set it up. Usually, it's the wife.
So
So
can you talk through that, because that's very interesting. So and I have thought that they probably have had to have gotten together in person with these people, left the phones at home, and that's
yes,
what I thought it have to be if you're being careful.
yeah. If you're being
So,
careful, the problem
yes.
is are they that careful? Now you have to go at it as if they are,
Yeah.
but you can't assume that they're dummies. And in today's age, everybody knows about all this. Everybody knows about the DNA and all that. That's why that guy was suited up like he was. Now, I personally don't believe. How do I say this without insulting anybody? Some people say, like that porch guy, he was spreading DNA all over that place because he was breathing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
DNA is not that good. I don't care what this ain't TV. If it was that good and they had DNA, why haven't it come back yet?
Yeah. No, I agree. That would if he was drooling,
Yeah.
and they did proper samples at the
Drooling's
front
different
door.
than breathing. I mean, I heard
Right,
one
yeah.
FBI guy says, he was spreading DNA all over that house because he was breathing.
No, I've never heard that,
Yeah. Well,
and I mean, I don't play a homicide detective on TV, but I think we've all watched enough real documentaries that we
yeah,
know you
yeah,
can't get DNA from
yeah.
breathing.
Well, I'm telling you, that's what an FBI agent said. I'm a retired
Really?
FBI agent. Said that.
Well,
Yeah.
bless his pea
I've
picking
listened to
heart.
all of them.
Pea
You
picking
know.
heart. Well, okay, so talk about this contract killing. I know I
Okay,
wanna hear,
contract
how does
killing.
this work? How does it work? Or what did you
Well,
experience?
in that case, there it was a similar thing. Now, this was years ago. We didn't have the tracking capability with the phones that we have today, but um, it was a wife wanted to off her husband over, divorce dispute, and it's one of the typical ones you see on TV on those
Mhm.
crime shows. So she hired some guys from out of the country. She was Colombian. She hired some guys from out of the country, and she made her contacts through the phone, but it was landline,
Okay.
and I'm not sure they had. I'm not sure. I can't remember if they had any cell phones. This
Probably
was back
long
in the
distance
this was back
charges
in the
then.
90s, you
Yeah.
know. So I don't know if they had any cell phones. I mean, we had the first beginning of some cell phones around 1990,
The regular
1991
folks
or
did
something.
not, and if they were, they were the shoes.
Oh yeah, we had this big old phone. One case I worked, the assistant chief of police gave me his phone. He said, "I
Oh,
don't
and
need this thing."
you were cool walking around the
Yeah,
off. I bet you just
yeah.
held it up. Oh
So
my god.
anyway, so she contracted with these guys from out of the country, and this is in Tampa, Florida area. So she set it all up and gave them where he was. They did surveillance on him and all this kind of stuff. He was a doctor in a hospital. So, and then she gave him information that where he stayed, where he went, the times he got off work, the time, all that kind of stuff. So they surveilled him and waited for him to come home, and then they did their deed. So it was really simple, really. Now, the funny part about that is whenever, not funny, but it's a story. I had a sergeant partner at the time in homicide, and he'd only been there a short period of time. We were having so many homicides, they brought in another sergeant, but I had worked late the night before, so I slept in a little bit on one day. So I was coming in about 9 o'clock in the morning. So I did have a cell phone. I called him and I asked him, I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Man, where you been?" I said, "I've been sleeping." So he says, "Well, we had a homicide last night, and it was just Dr. Davidson, the same one I'm telling you about." And so he gave me a little rundown of it over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I said, "Hey," and now actually we're in St. Petersburg. The doctor worked in St. Petersburg, lived in St. Petersburg, but the wife lived in Tampa. All right. So across the bay, Tampa Bay. So right then I told him, my instinct, you got to get surveillance on her right away. Okay. And now they had talked to her the night before, the homicide detective that was assigned to the case. I wasn't involved in it at that point. They had talked to her the night before. And the funny part about it was in Tampa. And the detective went over there, two of them, and they talked to the wife in the living room and find out, this your husband's killed and da, 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 so you're talking to her. Later on, we found out that the guy who did it or that set it up, which was her boyfriend, was hiding in the closet in her bedroom.
Ah.
So anyway,
Wow.
we
Dang.
set surveillance up on her though, and that afternoon she drove to Western Union and she wired money to Miami to pay these guys. Yep. Now that surveillance turned out beautiful.
Yeah.
We got her on that, and then of course it was a deal. Then after that, we ended up running a wiretap on that one and everything else, and going to Miami. And went to Miami. I was talking on 3 different phones at the same time and a radio in a whole area I didn't know to take down one of these guys. Anyway, that's another whole story.
No, but so you're 9 in the morning, you're slept in a little bit because you just been doing work and whatnot, and you knew to put surveillance on her, and you knew that because it's a pattern. It's just what happens, right?
Well, I guess it was just instinctive from what he told me,
Yeah.
and that, what was going on. I just knew, hey, listen, I think she set this up, even though they interviewed her and it's, oh, no, whatever.
So if you
Just
were,
instinctively, I knew. So
yeah.
a lot of times in homicides, they don't do these things. It's come about more as time has gone on. But we had a special unit of 12 people that was on a surveillance team. So we had a really good surveillance team. They weren't busy. I knew they weren't busy.
Mm-hmm.
They were a specialized unit, right? So I said, hey, call them, get them on them. And they were on them by noon. From 9 till noon, they had their whole team in. They usually worked evenings and stuff, but they had their whole team in surveilling her and using technology I won't talk about to do all that stuff.
So if you walked into the Nancy thing, I mean, would your gut have told you that a close family member had done it? Or, I mean, it's random. I mean, again, I'm just, because even I didn't think it was a family. I thought it was maybe an obsessed fan of Savannah, but everybody's like, oh, it's a family, because isn't that the most obvious? And usually,
yes,
yeah.
I see the reason for that.
Yeah.
And as Chris Madonna says, he hasn't left the house.
He hasn't left the house.
I haven't left the house all the way either. I'm still on the property. So,
well, the thing is that,
you can't until they're eliminated. That's what I'm trying to say.
The thing.
You got to eliminate them. You can't ignore them. You have to eliminate them. And then, even if you do all the things I was talking about, you still, I'm still hanging on by a thread.
Isn't that interesting? And and I completely respect, your professional opinion. And I don't want it to be them. I mean,
I don't
I've
want it to
been
be them either. I
correct.
really
I
don't.
really don't. I don't need that kind of drama. But
Mhm.
switching gears a little bit, why would they have kept A&T's car that long?
Because he was a suspect.
Okay.
When who is it? Banfield said she got information. He was the number one suspect. I think she was right at the time. He was.
But
He had to be.
they didn't keep like Luke Daly's Range Rover. They didn't
Yeah,
keep Nancy's. I mean, so I'm just trying to compare the
I hear
difference.
you.
Yeah.
Well, here's. Do we know for sure? Did they get a search warrant for Annie and Tommaso's car, or did they give it up voluntarily? Do we know? They
I
better
believe
have
they
got a
got a
search warrant.
search warrant for the car. I think
Yeah,
they that
okay. They
I
better have
think
got a search
I
warrant,
think
or that's
McDonough said that there was a search warrant for the car and that they
okay.
voluntarily let them in the house.
Yes, right. That's right.
Okay.
All right. So, well, the only thing I can say is they still believe that he was involved somehow, and Luke Daly and those other guys, that I've said I want to see those affidavits. I personally don't believe there was enough probable cause for them to do all that.
Yeah.
What did they
Well,
have? What
well,
did they have?
this is my next question though. So if they took Nancy's car and they returned it within a week or 10 days or whatever, and they took Luke Daly's Range Rover and then they processed it and returned it, don't you think that they're going to keep the car longer and keep ripping it apart if they see something? I mean, what are they testing first on the car? Do you know
Well,
what?
they're testing for everything, but DNA. Of course, her DNA is going to be in there, but where is it in there? Is it
Are they
in the
going to
back somewhere?
are they going to do luminol? Is that what they do? Are
Oh
they
yeah,
going to
they
do
would do that. That's probably the first thing you
the
would do.
first thing?
See if there was
So
blood in there, of course. And there wasn't any blood in there. If there was
okay,
blood in there and it was Nancy's blood, which would be easy for them, they'd already had cuffs on.
okay,
So other things they're looking for to me mostly in there would be the telemetry off the car
okay.
telling them where they went. If that's a 2011, I think. I'm not sure that's all in there on 2011, but it might be. So, but sometimes blood and all seeps in other places. So it's possible that there you could put her in that car and not see any blood right off with luminol, like in the back, in the trunk area or anything like that. But if she was bleeding good and it seeped out of they had it wrapped up in a plastic thing or something, it seeped out. So you're looking for why they're tearing the car apart is they're looking for anywhere where blood has seeped out. We had a case like that, and it ended up being a no body case that we ended up getting a conviction on. It was a drug dealer, drug thing, and that's how we got him. We got his car from when this all happened, and we pulled up all the carpet and everything. It had been cleaned to the nth degree, but blood had soaked in through uh, through the carpet and through the thing to get enough blood to where uh, we were able to convince the court, the jury, that the guy died. Now he had been missing for a couple of years. So you see, that was a deal where we got this car. He'd already gotten rid of the car, and it was in somebody else's possession for a couple of years. So anyway, we got that. We got the blood, and we even got DNA on that one because there was enough to really test. DNA really didn't come around until 1990 or so.
Yeah.
So
And that was
and,
very like rudimentary.
yes, and you had to have a pretty big sample.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had to have a drop the size of a dime almost in the beginning.
Yeah.
But they've
So
come
when
so far now. They've come so far now. They're too far, I think.
Well, I don't know. At times like this, I'm glad that they're making advances
All right.
because
Now, I have a issue with that you're going to see in court. This splitting up of these layers of DNA
that hasn't been done
never
before.
been tested in court before. That's going to be the problem. And if you get some good DNA experts and attorneys working on it, it'll be like the O.J. Simpson case. So, it hasn't been tested. There's a lot of things. Genealogy has not been tested in court.
But Huerman was a breaking case in the fact that they used the hair that was buried with the bodies. And the judge allowed it. And so I think we might see some of these things, definitely change, but it's not a shoo-in.
No, I'm saying if you go to trial.
Yep.
He didn't go to trial.
No, he did not.
There's a big trick when you go to trial.
Yeah.
You got to convince the jury, and
true.
All kinds of things can happen with a jury. That's why prosecutions don't want a jury. They don't want to go to trial. They'd rather that's why they plead so many of them out. They don't want to go to, because anything can happen with a jury. Just like we saw in O.J. Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
O.J. Simpson had a very sympathetic jury. That was a slam dunk DNA case. But you had a couple of super attorneys come in. They brought in these super duper experts and all this kind of stuff. And the jury was confused by the DNA.
Yeah.
They got confused. And then, there was other issues in that case too. But, that was the problem there. And I think the jury's going to be confused now. If you can't just, as far as I'm concerned, a defense attorney's not going to allow this. You can't just walk into court and say, we got DNA on that guy. You can't do that. You have to explain how, why, how it was processed, and all this you got to go through the whole thing. And that's what they're going to dig out, the whole thing. When it comes to this, layers of, of DNA, some of this DNA, could come from years ago, the way it's so good now. That's why I say it's almost too good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can confuse the jury, because you might have different people identified, a whole array of people identified. And you say, well, how come it wasn't one of those guys? See, you're going to have to, if you're going to have those people identified, then you're going to have to prove they couldn't have done it.
Correct.
It could be anybody that had come in there, a maintenance man, whatever. Now they could have done it, but they can also be in the layers that are in there that make them suspects when they're not really suspects. If that makes sense to you, and you have to eliminate all them too.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a tangled web we weave. So
that's just my viewpoint.
Sure.
It's going to make it more difficult. And that's why everything has to be done. All the T's have to be crossed and the I's dotted and all that. It's got to be perfect, dead on. Which you've never been in, but homicide detectives that have been in trial or been in deposition, they know what it's like to be raked over the coals by the attorneys.
Yeah.
And before you get out of that deposition, I'm going to be in big trouble when it comes to trial. Or, when you get to trial and they start raking you over the coals, on something that you hadn't thought about, or something you didn't do that their investigators dug up and all that.
Well, it changes the way you investigate.
Huh?
It changes the way you investigate in the future, because if you've gone through this.
Exactly. So you're so much more careful about how you do things and make sure you do all that needs to be done. It's much harder today than it's ever been, even though technology has made it easier. How about that?
Well, I swore there wasn't a case in 2026 that anyone could get away with, and then literally this happened. So I don't know. So
I know there's a lot of people that believe that you can't get away with anything anymore.
Correct.
Because of DNA and because of our cell phones and how they can track us and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost true, but it's not totally true.
So Poorhouse is asking, ask Boomer, does it really take this long to clear someone? And I'm going to add on to that my last question about the car. Have you seen it take 40 plus days to return a vehicle? I mean,
wow, we never had that. We never kept one that long.
okay.
First off, like McDonough explained the other night on how many days you got to return the car, and you
Yep.
can, like normally it's 5 days, you can get an extension from the judge and all that stuff, but to get an extension out to 45 days or whatever it is, that's hard to understand. But maybe they did, get an extension. But when you get those extensions, it's like getting extensions on wiretaps and things like that. You got to go into the judge and you got to explain, why do I need this extension? So which means I got to say, listen, we've got this, we found this, or we think there's more here. We're trying to figure out this telemetry that we got. We can't quite get it figured out yet. So judge, we need an extension, please.
Mm-hmm.
Well, decides.
That points to there could be a there.
Yeah.
And then how long does it take to clear people? Okay, so let's ask it this way.
It could take for years, or it could be, that's why I'm saying, if you do all these things to quote, clear them, you can do that. I would think it's probably months, because they need to go through all those things I talk about, all their finances, everything you can get your hand on from Annie and Tommaso to figure out, and mostly it's finances. And you need to have special types of investigators, and the FBI's got all that to deal with their finances and all, to see if there's any hidden stuff in there that they were going for, that they've already taken, that kind of stuff. A lot of times you find out in these cases that the elder has bank accounts already been emptied.
Yeah.
If Annie has power of attorney, which is probably a good chance, they could have co-power attorney, but let's say power of attorney, there's probably a good chance of that. That means they can, or even just signing on their bank account. It's easy. The easiest way for elder people to do, you said you had an elder mother, but is to have them co-own your account. If you can be a trustworthy daughter or son, right? So that we don't have to go all through this litigation to get the money, to get, to do whatever. All right. So you got to check all that out. So then if you find out, and this happens, you find out that the family, whoever is your caretaker, has emptied your bank account, been taken from your investment account or something like that, because they've got the authority through a power of attorney, and mama don't know about it. And it could be that, these are things, I'm not trying to say this.
Of course.
These are things that could be coming up. There's a deadline coming up that's, mama's going to be checking this, and, whatever. That's why you have to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things you do to eliminate somebody. First one is interviewing them.
Yeah. And getting their story straight, they should both be coming up with the same story.
Yeah. And then, do they have a landline at home? I mean, this is all elementary, a landline at home. We probably don't, but you get all the phone records off of that too. And, anything that can trace where they've been, what they've been doing, or any money, financial things, you got to trace that. And you got to do that same thing with Nancy. You got to look through all of Nancy's stuff, because then you might find out that Nancy's missing a whole lot of money. It shouldn't have been missing. Where did that go? Who got that? Those are all motives. So you have to eliminate those motives for Annie and Tommaso.
And they have to button this up it's very possible that they have a bunch of stuff, but they may not be like putting cuffs on anybody at this point. Is that true? Or do you think they would have?
If they had something, if they had anything right now, I think they'd be arresting somebody. They wouldn't be holding back. Now, it could be, the FBI, something I heard probably today, it's maybe a few days old from Brian Enton talking to somebody, and they're all now. This is one of my complaints I had them. They're all now meeting at the Phoenix office task force. It's all in one office now. They've all come together, and for what group they have, they're all meeting together and everything like that. So I forget what I was going to say now.
It's okay. They're all meeting in Phoenix at the task force.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I forget what I was going to say.
my
really.
train leaves the station. Okay, well, you'll remember.
Yeah,
It'll come back.
Spin around here a little bit.
It will. It does the same thing to me too. So ask Boomer, what if they are in Italy?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, does Italy have a extradition treaty with us?
It does.
Probably not.
No, they do, but it can't. It has to be. They
Can't
have
have
to,
a death penalty.
can't have the death penalty, and you have to actually prove to the Italian court that there's enough evidence. So they kind of have to have like a mini thing, and then they have to approve whether you've got enough evidence before they send you back. You've got to prove it.
Yeah. Well, it's a problem if they're out of the country in Italy, and I don't think anybody knows exactly where they are. They're not around. It wouldn't surprise me they went to Italy. Now I've heard rumors that say they usually go to Italy in the summertime. I don't know.
So I get, and Boomer, you know this, I do get a lot of emails. You probably get a lot of emails too from viewers. I had somebody who sent me screenshots of, and it's all redacted, so I don't have a name and I don't have a date, but somebody sent me screenshots of a student schedule, like a daily schedule of classes. And it does show under science, Tommaso Cioni on the schedule, but they couldn't confirm the date. And everything had been redacted. So I don't know if it's from last year or not. That's why I'm not sharing it, because I don't know if it's an old schedule or if it's a new schedule. So I don't know, but somebody did send me a schedule. I just don't know if it's from this year. And somebody I had read also thinks that they could be not staying at their home because people know where they live now. And I wouldn't feel safe,
I don't think they're staying at their home.
I wouldn't.
A few of those streamers will ride by there.
Yes, they're looking for them
now. Say there's nobody there. No lights on, stuff like that.
I mean, I think it would be really uncomfortable to go back to work with students if there's this, this guy's, whether he did it or not, his life is ruined. I mean, as far as I'm concerned,
Pretty much, unless they find the real suspect and prove it. And then there'll be people that still won't believe it.
Correct. Yeah. So, so let's switch gears now, and let me know if you need to go, because we're already running a bit over. I usually try to go about an hour, but we talk. So
I'm fine. It doesn't bother me.
So we got to start over. They apparently the FBI came, or someone was looking behind the house in the wash.
I thought about what it was. I forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That basically the FBI has taken over now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good.
They're taking over. It may not be exactly. They've said we're taking it. We're not taking it away from the sheriff. They're working in conjunction with them, but they're in control. That's what Jen
said when she called a lead into the TV station, that they said we're not sending anything to PCSD. Okay. So that's great. I hope they are. Right. Okay, well, thank you. I know my train leaves the station a lot. It isn't a show until my train leaves, and it's better because there's two of us. Usually it's just me going, oh. So let's go back. Let's start over this investigation. They've got some people in the wash because with the monsoon, it's going to shift debris. And for some reason, people think that she could be nearby. She might be. God, I hope they find her. But if you were to start this investigation, you got it brand new, fresh eyes. What's the first thing you are going to do?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the scene. And as far as me personally, but also the team, and that's probably why you're seeing FBI out there now moving around, and they're doing more checking. What they're checking, I don't really know, but that, and then I would start retracing, a lot of what we've already done, because we could have missed something. And I mean, I ran into that in that big case I had where they missed something for a whole
Yep.
year.
The
So,
file.
yeah. So, you can easily miss something. I would go back over statements that we've had. I would start a new neighborhood canvas, go back and redo it with people. Well, you say that's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but do you want to get it done or not? There's people that remember things now that they wouldn't have, that maybe they didn't remember before, where all the hullabaloo going on. They might have been afraid to talk and all this kind of stuff. But that's where I would start, and I would widen that out. Now, as far as people want to say, well, we need to do searches, and I don't know exactly why we need to do searches. You could do searches, like there's like, for example, her septic tank. They looked in her septic tank, but they
Yep.
poked around in there. What they should have done is call out one of the septic truck
Dump
companies
it.
and
Suck
it all out.
it all.
Exactly.
I know.
So to make sure there's nothing in there, but they might. So I would start with doing new statements and new interviews and stuff like that, going back, reviewing all the interviews. Now, I don't know how many interviews they've done. There can't be that many. Annie and Tommaso, how many other interviews could they have done? Going back through your leads. Here, I know what's happened with these leads. Now, there's a lot of conflicting stories about how many leads they got. Let's say somewhere between 20 and 40,000.
Billions.
I know there's no
Nano's math says it's billions. Nano math. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I know they haven't completely gone through that list. What they're doing is they went through it like, you would be going through a trash pile looking for something you had to have right now. You go, you're just throwing it out like that. And so you don't know what you just threw away you thought was no good, but it actually was what you were looking for, so they got to go back and look. There's a lot of leads are junk. There's no doubt about that. And they usually are pretty easy to look at and see, but there's other leads that people, they overlook. Let's say the one that Jen from Thornbridge, the south of the border one.
Yeah.
Everybody's thrown that out, that's not anything, there's
Could be. We don't
talking
know.
heads and retired detectives that say that about it too. But how do we know that? What harms it do to go send a couple of FBI agents down there and talk and find out what the story is? And so you've covered that base. That's another thing. If the defense attorneys find out that was something that was there, they'll use that against you. Why didn't you follow this up? So you got to re-go through everything is what it boils down to. I mean, that's what we did on the one big case I talk about a lot. And that is that we went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and we found a lot of stuff that was not done. A lot.
So, Boomer, can cadaver dogs smell human ashes?
I'm not totally sure about that one.
Yeah.
Ashes. I'm not sure about that. It's a good question, though.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So I watch Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. I don't know if you've heard of them. They are retired law enforcement, and Ed Wallace is actually
what's the name of their show?
It's Crime Time with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace.
Oh, I have seen that show before. Yeah.
Ed Wallace is a forensic expert, and he actually trains. And so he said he's gone back. He was hired by a defense attorney or whatever, and went back to a scene 18 months after and was able to, re-swab and forensics ties, ubulubu, whatever the word is. And he got stuff. I mean, would you have forensics go back through that house or a different team?
I would. But again, there's a problem there because it's been so contaminated and released. Nobody was going to live in the house. They should still have that house under their possession. The police.
But
they should have kept it and done everything that could possibly be done in there.
You get one shot.
Yeah. But you keep it as long as you possibly can keep it.
Yeah.
It was not unusual for us to keep scenes for a week, or longer, according to
We
what
could have
needed
kept
to
it a
be done
month.
in the crime scene. Yeah. So departments don't like to do that because they have to leave somebody there 24 hours a day guarding the place. So, and anyway,
So if
I
they
don't see a problem with that, but the defense is going to like that. If you one of your you go back now, and all of a sudden now you found the DNA. How do we know it
well,
wasn't planted in there?
don't you think that, but don't you, I mean, and this is a question, aren't law enforcement, shouldn't they provide their DNA so that they can automatically get
Yes.
rid of the
Yeah.
people? I mean,
Yeah.
and they could
Yeah.
still find something.
That's why I
The
was saying
log.
about the log.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
the
we don't even
problem.
know who was there. We don't know who. You'd have to ask everybody who all was there, and now we need your DNA, and that kind of stuff. So, because
I know.
it could be a policeman's DNA. They go back and they now scan and get a policeman's DNA. Oh, we got a new DNA,
Yeah.
and it was a detective. Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be entering. Well, whatever.
Well, and at this stage, I mean, I don't think it's beyond comprehension that they could easily bring A and T back in, put them in separate rooms, film it, do a proper interrogation, and you could still
Absolutely.
find out if stories don't match at this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if they're in Italy, that's going to be hard.
Dang it. I
No,
forgot about that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Listen, there's people we've had in cases before we brought in multiple times and talked to them. And if they're innocent, they don't care. They'll,
correct.
they'll do it. They want to, if they're innocent, they want to find out who did this. They should agree to anything that needs to be done. That's
So,
the way I look at it. That doesn't mean they're guilty if they don't, but it
sure.
means, come on, you're trying to help us out here. That's all.
And along those lines, McDonough and Karen went into Tucson and there was just no presence of Nancy, nothing
Yeah.
anywhere, and everyone's to shut up. My Kathy Lee Gifford, told, is that an anomaly?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Normally people, and even the people in Tucson, the Tucson area, the county, the city, whatever, they should want this case closed. For one thing, we do not know that it isn't a guy out there loose that's going to do it to somebody else.
Yeah.
We don't know that,
Yeah.
and I mean, Nanos, even somebody asked him a question about that one time, and he basically said, no, you can't be, we don't know you're safe. It could be. So there's a whole lot of reasons why the community should want this. They don't want to brush it under the rug. Here's what happens though. It happened on that big case I have, and the media pushed, and people pushed that it's family, family, family. Then the public said, they accepted, okay, it's family. It's family. It's nothing for us to worry about. It's family. They're not going to bother us. But what if it's not family? What if it's a
Yeah.
whole different ball game? So they need to be eliminated so that you can tell everybody else you need to be looking for this guy. And that's what the media release at sheriff now after 6 months puts out this media release about here's what you need to be looking for. Look for these changes that somebody might
Yeah.
have done in your life. These changes all occurred, most of them right around the time of what happened to Nancy. Now
Yeah.
you're asking people 6 months later to remember all that back then. Whatever. It should have been released, just like the notes should have been released
Correct.
much earlier. And this last media release where the sheriff said, I want you to look for all these people. Well, who's he talking to? He's talking to the Tucson community.
Yeah.
He's not talking to people south of the border.
Mhm.
He's talking to the Tucson community. And there's probably a good likelihood it could go either way, but a good likelihood this guy's from the Tucson community. And
Yes.
whoever that guy was that was on that porch, they know. This is one of the things that I think Chris Madonna and his wife made clear with their trip to Tucson. because they went out there at nighttime, they went out there at daytime and everything else, and it's so dark. There's no way you could have gone to this house in the dark of the night without knowing where you were and have done this before and know where it's at. I totally see that.
And
even
you
in
have
the
to have
daytime.
GPS. Well, you have to have GPS. I've been there. It is a spaghetti bowl. If I didn't have GPS, I couldn't have found it.
Sure. So what did those guys, they didn't have their phone with GPS.
I couldn't tell you how they got there. Well, they had to recon it a couple times.
They would have found their phones on the geo thing.
Then that's why they had to have. When I went there, I'm like, there's no doubt this guy reconned it. He probably reconned it 2 or 3 times if he didn't have a phone.
Maybe more than that.
Yes, I'm convinced.
Like I said, he may live in the area.
Yeah.
Then you had that one neighbor that Brian Enton got to be good friends with.
Yeah.
That
saw the guy.
saw this guy, you know, and I think that guy might be one of the guys. I think there's 3. That's what I've come down to now. I do believe there's 2, but I think there's 3. 2 guys went to the house and one person was in the car. Yeah. They had those little 2-way radios.
Yeah.
They call them up to pick them up. You know.
I agree. I agree.
But, you know, but those bad guys, they walked in from somewhere.
Yeah. It's a long walk.
I believe they drove in, they walked in. So they had to know where they were walking, and they might have walked through a lot of the
bramble.
Yeah, all that. And how did they know to do that? And the route in and all.
It would hurt. I can tell you, their clothing would be ripped, and it's thick. I mean, you can't see standing in front of the house. You have to go to the driveways to even see the house because the bramble is so thick. So
they have to know where they're at, where they're going.
So going back to the family and how, I mean, and again, this is going to be all speculation. I'm not looking for a real, there are no wrong answers here, but why would a family, why would it, please help, take your time. Why is a family not going to want to talk about it? What is the benefit of them not talking or telling people?
I don't know.
And it's all speculation.
Bad advice. They think the police are going to try and pin it on them. They know these statistics that Tommaso dropping her off makes, and then of course they might have been. It was made clear to them when the people come into their house, search their house, search their car, and everything. Hey, there's Tucson. He knows.
Looky, eggs and cookie. Hey, Damien.
He knows how it is.
Hey, Damien, we're simulcasting. We've seen you do it. We're like, we're going to do that. Boo, 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 boo.
She's got me involved in a training session there, Tucson.
Yes. So, okay. So, and so that's what I have to think about is just from human maybe, okay, so this is what I don't understand. And I'm just talking, I'm riffing now. Yeah.
Let's talk.
Because you want help. She's asked for help, but she doesn't want people talking about it. Is it because okay, it crosses each other out.
I don't get it. I saw your show yesterday.
Yes.
And, talking about that. And I agree with you. I don't get it. I really don't get it. She should be, yes, sir. That's right, brother.
That's how we feel, 857. We do want to work together. Absolutely.
So there's no reason why she isn't leading the parade. She should be involved. Savannah.
Yep.
She should be leading the parade. She should be coming back to Tucson. She should be, I've suggested this. Of course, they're not listening to me. I'm a nobody. But, put up those billboards. The thing the Madonnas didn't see, put up those billboards, do the flyers, the billboards, and then have a press release and have a Savannah come out where the billboards are going to be and call the media out there. Man, it would draw so much attention.
Yeah,
It would
it
bring so
would.
much attention to the case. Now,
Yes,
you
because
won't
people
help. Who's
care.
going to help you? Who are you asking to help you?
Well,
It's
and
the people. It's not the law enforcement's already helping all they can at this point.
and honestly, if she came out and was more open and A and T were more open, I mean, there's still gonna be people who don't believe, but gosh, the
Yeah.
the fact that they, without the mask and the covering their face up, I mean, it just if again, her husband is in PR, but I don't know that he's giving her the best advice,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't.
If he is, if he is.
I don't know. I don't know what she's asking for help, but who's she asking for help from?
I don't know.
You
That's
know,
it's like
on top of that, she needs to be helping herself. And that means she needs to be coming out and being a part of it. Now she thinks that, oh, it's going to be too much. I'm going to create a circus or whatever. So what?
yeah,
You're
it is a
protected. You got a
circus.
whole team of people protecting you. It would encourage the people to work for her. This is why it's so discouraging what she's done. I ain't say she's done. What's been
Mhm.
done to like the streamers. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that goes on, but they're doing a good job. They're doing a good work. They're keeping it before the eyes of the people. And they're
Yes,
not letting it die off. If you let it die off, it's going to go cold, guaranteed. If you let it
correct.
die off, and you let all this attention that YouTubers are bringing out, you know,
I
the
agree.
Thornbridge, they don't like to call them YouTubers anymore. They got a new name for it,
What are they calling
alternate
them?
news source or something. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
I like it better
Yes.
because
Well, it's
they've turned the YouTuber name into a bad name somehow. Anyway,
yes, it
those
is.
people are out there working. But this is a new era, people.
It
You better
is.
get used to it.
Yep.
YouTube's not going away. The
It's getting
mainstream
bigger.
media abandons these stories overnight. It is the YouTubers that are keeping it alive. Now you can say, well, they're just trying to make money. What do you think Savannah's doing? What do you think NBC's doing? They're making money on everything, you know?
I
So
guess it's good for me and not for thee. So, do
yeah,
you have any last questions yourself or comments or anything else that I didn't ask you about that you think would be helpful for us to know? I mean, you feel like it's 50-50 right now, family or random, correct? Or
probably.
yeah,
I don't want it to be family, so I'm
I
probably
don't either.
edging more to the 49-50, you know. And I
I
do
don't want it
believe
to.
that they have in hand some things that like their phone and that kind of stuff that says something.
Yeah.
What it says, I don't know. I'm sure if his phone, it also should tell. It also should tell when he got there, when he left, how soon after he got there, and then how soon he left. You know, and there's questions on the timeline, which like, did he take her inside? Did he escort her inside? That type of thing. He should have.
That's
You
what
know.
they said in the first press conference that somebody asked, and he said yes, he'd walked her in. So
Well, maybe he did, but there's tons of questions. But the biggest question that I want to know, kind of, it's not that big of a question, really, is why did Cam say what he said to Savannah?
bingo.
You
What,
know,
who's going to
that's a
say,
that's a
"Oh,
missing link.
my
It might be
mother,
nothing.
she was kidnapped for ransom." That's exactly where I'm going. Just lickety split.
What? Yeah.
So we have a question. What does
Okay.
Boomer think about the ICACs being at A&T's house?
Well, they were doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to download everything on computers, cell phones, Wi-Fi, everything.
Well, it looked
That's
bad
what.
because they're the children group, and so that's
Yeah.
why people raised up. But they're not necessarily for that.
No,
Or
they
okay,
use them for stuff like this too. Yeah. But no, I don't think it has anything to do with that.
yeah,
It has to do with the fact that they are equipped to download all this information.
quickly.
When you go these perverts and stuff that have all their computers are full of child porn and all this kind of stuff, that's what they use it for. But in this case here, they're using it, and they should be for what they use it for, to unload all their computers, their laptops, desktops, everything they got, including their Wi-Fi and everything else that they can come up with to determine what pattern they were setting before Nancy was kidnapped. What were they searching on their computer? You know, that's all they got on that Kohlberger's guy. Yeah, they got a ton of stuff on him on all that kind of stuff, and then they got a lot of stuff afterwards.
Mm.
You know, after he did the murders. Now, in this case here, it's really close proximity, but they could even still be doing something. You know, I don't know. They could be tapping their phones, but I don't know.
They could. Absolutely.
Could.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I would if I could. If it was
Well,
me and I could get a judge to sign off on it.
I mean, releasing these notes is, you know, that's part of tickling the wire. I mean, you put your billboards up in the Rogers family.
Yes, it is.
See who's doing what then.
Well, why did they release these notes now? You know, that is a question. Now, if it's simply, well, we didn't have anything left to do and we didn't have anything to lose. Okay, I can handle that answer. You know, so it was somewhat strategic.
Yeah.
It was at the 6-month mark. You know, Savannah's comments at the 6-month mark. Then old Nanos went on a speaking tour right here at the 6 months. So it was all came together in an effort to shake the trees a little bit, maybe, and to get people more encouraged to keep their eyes open. So, but this should have all been being done all along. One of the things I had on that one big case I like to talk about, I'm gonna do I have a members thing, and I'm gonna do a whole thing on that, a bunch of chapters, so to speak.
Okay.
Because it's a career's worth of learning on that one case.
I'm fascinated by it.
So if you see what all happens, what goes on, listen, I had to fight my own department to keep it going.
You did.
So it wasn't like, oh, we're all in favor of this. They weren't in favor of it. Let's take it back. They allowed us to do it, and we were allowed to get to the end, but there was a lot of struggles along the way of wanting to shut it down.
Well, you caught hell from the original detectives too.
Yeah,
it was awkward.
That.
Yeah,
I understand that because, you know, they interpreted it as we were not valuing their work they had done in the case.
Well,
we did. And they had a whole lot right. I mean, you know.
But they missed the one piece that put it together.
Huh?
They missed that piece, that pamphlet that put it together.
Yeah. But the key, the lead detective also picked up on a Florida Department of Law Enforcement bulletin that came through around the 6-month mark into that thing. And that was a good lead. And he picked up, and that's just something that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I don't know what they do now. Of course, this is a long time ago. They would send out a bulletin every month of cases and things around Florida, and it would have descriptions of things. And so they send one to every department. And what we used to do, we would take it and we would give it to the burglary department. We'd give it to the robbery department. It'd finally swing around to the homicide. And you're asking everybody to sign off on it that you've read it. You know, it's about 40-page document usually, or maybe a little bit less, but anyway. So the lead detective, he was thumbing through that like he should have been, but you know, he could have not even looked at it. He was thumbing through it, and he found a key lead. I mean, a key lead, and that sprung us off again. But then what happened was that nothing happened for the remainder of that 6 months, and it went cold after a year. And he got assigned other homicides and stuff like that, because that's what happens if you're in a homicide unit. And you're at that time at St. Pete, we were getting the most homicides we'd ever gotten for the city. It's a lot less now, but we were getting up close to 50 homicides a year, and for our size city, that was a lot. So these guys had to the lead detective there and his partner, lead detective, after about 4 months, they started getting assigned other homicides.
Sure.
Because you just have to do
You
that.
move on. Yeah. Du jour, they keep coming. Crunch
In
all
the
you want,
beginning,
more with
they
more.
had, well, I heard from Brian Enton this other day that in the beginning that here in Pima County, they had every detective working on this for a while, every detective in their detective division. And we had that too, which was 50 detectives at the time. We had that, but then you start phasing them out. You get all these, you knock off all these things you want done. You start phasing them out, and you get down to a core group, and that's where they are now. And then, of course, we were fortunate. We got to revitalize it and bring in a whole new group and a task force to get going again. And one of the things I'm saying about a lot of this stuff, if you don't do it now, you're going to have to do it later, or it's going to get cold and somebody will look at it 20 years from now. One detective, cold case detective, he's going to look at it and go through it and go, wow, look at this. They missed this. Why do we want to wait to miss it? Let's make sure we get it done now, and that's why you need to re-go through this stuff. It's like polishing a car. You don't just polish one little side of it. You go through the whole thing, then you go back and do it again if you want it to be good.
Well, I recommend everybody go to Boomer Investigates, and under his description on his channel, there's a Forensic Files episode he was in. There's an article that's wonderful. I mean, he's got all the media on this story with the Rogers family. Please go check it out, and if you haven't already, because it's fascinating. It's a horrible story, but he and his team solved it. It was a cold case, so
it was a team. It wasn't me.
It was a team.
It was a team. I just team leader. So.
Well, the family needed that. The dad needed that. It's awful.
Yeah, and it was a case where everybody was stuck on the family. Everybody was stuck on the family. Newspapers were stuck on the family. Everybody was stuck on the family.
Yeah, and the dad lived in Ohio, and this crime was done in Florida, and they were still stuck on the dad, and the uncle was in jail, and it's the uncle, it's this, and they were states away, so it happens.
Right. So we were fortunate to work it as long as we did, but it was not because they just openly let us do it. I had to personally keep pressure on. One of the ways I kept pressure on was continuing to strategically release some information to the media that they were interested in. You can't give them the same thing every time.
Gotcha.
You got to give them something new, or you got to give them some new hook to get them out there, to get them to do it. And then so we were fortunate to be able to do all that. That's all I can say. We were fortunate to be able to do it in the end. Sometimes it was a struggle, but we were fortunate. Very thankful that we were able to get it to work it. See a sign behind my thing that says Operation Tin Man. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
That was what it was?
He was Operation Tin Man. He had no heart.
Oh, dang. I
We
wondered
called it
about
Operation Tin Man. Yeah, he had no heart.
He didn't. He was cruel. I mean, really beyond ruthless. Horrible. Well, you know what? I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for coming back on Boomer. I'm so glad we get to simulcast. If you're watching on Boomers, please subscribe. If you're watching on mine, subscribe. It's a win-win. We support each other. Absolutely.
Appreciate it very much, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, please, please do.
Our goal is to see Nancy found and 3 people caught. Not to make money, but our goal is to do that. Okay.
Correct. Absolutely. Our heart is in the right place. Absolutely. So, well, thank you everybody for coming and joining. Thanks again, Boomer. I hope we get to do this again. Now we know how to simulcast. Hopefully we can do this more, but I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah. Thank you. You too.
Yes. Catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm signing off. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.